it's pronounced Tamara, right? Did I say it right?
It's Tamara. Right?
Tamara, that's right. You just said it. Tamara. Tamara. Okay, yeah. Tamara. I don't know if I've ever heard it pronounced that way, actually.
Yeah, it's I get Tamara, Tamara, tomorrow. It's like whatever kind of rings a bell. And then, the last name is no easier. It's Tamara Deike. So yeah, it's been my cross to bear.
I love that. You got to lean into it, right? That's really the only way to deal with it. So listen, just want to say thank you first off, just for taking the time to talk to me today. And yeah, really just want to get down to really just what I'm doing is I'm talking to a lot of different people basically about the virus and how it's affecting their personal lives, their business life, how the virus has come in and affected their lives, and how they're adapting, and what they're doing to make things better, I guess, to sort of move on. What sort of things are they doing? And then what do they think people can do to sort of help this situation? So we'll just start with, how has the virus affected you exactly?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the virus has affected me in a lot of ways. Every day, I suppose I'm taking stock of the impact that it's making. I'm trying to take that 30,000 foot view while also kind of in the trenches of sort of, survival as well as creative expression.
Sure.
The impact directly for me has been that I was specifically working on the production of 4 different events that were all taking place during South by Southwest. Yeah. I also had an event that was happening in New York City the week of South by Southwest that was separate to South by. And I also had a client that was unrelated to, well, let me back up. I had a client as well that was a part of cancellations that happened. So I lost 5 clients in 48 hours.
Oof.
And so, the one that I was still holding on to was a non-event related client. So I was thinking, okay, well, at least I have this. At least I have this one client that I'm still holding on to. And unfortunately, with that client, that was specifically related to the climate and climate change. And unfortunately, the client in question determined that, it was just not the appropriate time. It was distasteful and perhaps a bit tone deaf to focus on climate change at a time when we are literally, being faced with a pandemic.
Sure.
And so they decided to put that on hold. So in one full swoop, I lost, 5 figures of income, work that I had been, I had been working on these projects for a number of months.
Yeah.
So that happened. The virus has been affecting. So then, it's taking a toll and making an effect on my financial situation.
Sure.
I think, for me, what happened, I guess maybe the better way to answer this question is, when that happened, I was shell-shocked. And for me, distraction and finding purpose were really important. And that's what got me through at that sort of critical moment when South by canceled and it was kind of all coming fast and furiously. Somebody said to me the other day, it was sort of like the canary in the coal mine. I feel like in some ways, because South by was canceled, we here in Austin specifically, and anybody that was, working on or connected to South by Southwest was given a small heads up in terms of what was to come. And so the distraction for me was banding together with other small businesses and entrepreneurs here in Austin, many of which I'd never met before. And we gathered together that Friday in a room and really just put our heads down and started to think about, well, what can we do right now to help the thousands of people who are out of work, who have resources that they're sitting on. Events were still happening if there were 2,500 people or less at that time. And so there were venues that were maybe no longer officially accredited by South by, but they were available, right? And so you had empty venues, you had events that were still happening, you had people still coming to the city that wanted to participate in whatever remained of South by, and we wanted to provide a conduit for that information sharing. And so we developed Rally Austin as a website and platform to effectively be that conduit for information sharing. So it was a place, and still is a place, where people can share information about resources, jobs, available services, and over the past 2 weeks, we've watched Rally Austin, shift from specifically what we thought was sort of a triage for the cancellation of South by to becoming actual information portal and sharing component for people that are now dealing with the fallout of this crisis.
Yeah, because now it's way more than South by. South by is I've almost forgotten about South by, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways. Like, it's kind of, and that for me too was a huge impact. I lost a big catering gig that I had, and I do South by every year, and it's same for me. Same for my company that was coming from London. Rented a house, Airbnb, 6 people come flying in. A lot of money spent. All these. Yeah, just like everybody, right? Buying merchandise, just setting up all these interviews, all this work, just like you, and then just boom, it just, and they were asking me, Patrick, what do you think? Should we cancel our flights? Do you think they're going to cancel South by? And I remember saying, they're never going to cancel South by. Like, are you kidding me? That's never been canceled for anything. I just don't see them doing that. Sure enough, it came. And again, at this point, I can't even remember South. There's been so many more problems that came after that I've sort of forgotten about South by. It seems to be, like you said, you started that group with that intention, but now it's grown into more, inevitably, for anybody that's dealing with this virus, because it is literally everybody. There's not one person, even if you're not struggling financially, you're still having to deal with the impact it has on the city,
That's right.
So,
yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. I had people as well that I had invited to come here and speak on panels or participate, or they were in-kind partners. I had colleagues, one of which was sort of in that early age demographic that we were hearing was more susceptible to the virus itself. Yeah. And so, I remember, participating in a conversation with him specifically and saying, me and some other friends and colleagues were like, don't come. Just as much as you want to be here, it feels like it's a bad idea. You need to stay home.
Sure.
I've never done community planning in my life. So this was a new place for me to step into. And one of the silver linings is that, it felt good. I felt like, for me personally, this is my year 1 of living here. This March is year 1. And for me, it really felt like, for the first time, that I was truly a part of this community.
That's awesome.
I've lived all over the world. I was in LA, New York, London, Berlin, San Francisco, Pittsburgh. I've been all over. And to now, be a part of this community during this rare experience, this crisis that none of us expected. It's so interesting, because one of the things that appealed to me and attracted me to Austin was that DIY spirit, and to see the way that people have, despite these hardships and circumstances, open their hearts, open their doors, open their minds, checking in on friends and making sure their mental wellness is okay. All of those things, I've seen it really thriving in this community in a way that, and this is not to diss any other place I've lived, but I'm not sure how it would be going down right now for me if I was living in, some of those other places. Austin is unique. It's special.
I agree.
I'm proud to call it home,
That's awesome. Wow, that's great to hear. I completely agree. I've lived, Austin's actually the longest city, or the place I've lived the longest in my adult life. I've lived here 6 years in May. That's the longest I've ever lived in a place, because I've always moved around. But there is something special about Austin. And you're right. The sense of community when all this started, blowing up. And granted, I'm kind of in a bubble. I'm kind of in the restaurant industry bubble, and maybe the musician bubble, because a lot of my friends are musicians. So I kind of see the world from that perspective. So when all this was going down, I'm seeing the trials and tribulations that my industry is going through, and I see everyone coming together to try to help each other, like just crazily come together, kind of like when Katrina happened, and everybody stepping in to fundraise and do this and do that, and Harvey. Even closer to that, Hurricane Harvey in Houston, right? So everybody was just coming together. It's just that's just what happens here in Texas. People just come together. It doesn't surprise me, honestly, to hear all that and to know that that's happening. I expected it. In fact, there's so many resources that people are now even having to wade through that. Having to wade through that. You almost need a resource to help you guide you through the resources. It's a funny, right? It's like it's a funny, but that's just because so many people are stepping up. People like yourself, who never even done that before, right? Who never even thought to do something like that. And you're sort of forced into this position and look what it's done for you. This is probably something that you might continue to do even after this ends, right? You'll always kind of feel maybe I need to always be thinking about these things, even if there's not a global crisis happening, which is a good thing. Maybe this will stick with people.
I hope so. I think you're right. And, even if today the bill of health was clear, the virus magically disappeared. People that were ill in hospitals were suddenly cured, and we went out into the streets and public places and tried to go back to living the way we had previously. No matter what, the landscape has changed already. Yeah. It's forever changed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, myself included, are hypothesizing on what will happen to our local bars and restaurants, what will happen to our local music venues, what will happen to the way that we experience concerts now, the way that we engage with other people. I've been hearing from friends who have been out in public recently to get groceries, which I personally haven't been out in 14 days. That there's like a kindness, but there's a hesitation.
Yes.
There's a new way of kind of protecting yourself when you're out amongst others. And does that continue after today, even when we've been given the bill of clean health? Are we more cautious? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But the landscape is forever changed. And so to your point, I think that, there will, of course, be some silver linings that are already coming out of this. I'm having phone conversations, video chats with people that I've been wanting to catch up with for forever. And,
same here.
It's like that slowing down, pausing, taking time to reflect. That for me is one of the big things that has thus far come out of this. You asked me what I've been up to. I've been working on an article myself about, musicians and the creative class specifically here in Texas and the way that they're dealing with first South by cancellations and now the pandemic. You can't talk about that without also speaking to the grit that makes Texas, Texas.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of creative projects that I've shelved and taking them off and dusted them off and I'm revisiting them. I'm working on them. And frankly, I'm reevaluating what I do because a lot of the work I've done in the past 8 months with my agency has specifically been around, experiential. It's people getting together and experiencing things. That's not going to change. It'll come back eventually. But right now it is not available to us. And so I've had to reevaluate and pivot, and so a lot of that for me is really getting to the crux of what makes me tick, what's important to me, what do I care about, what am I good at, what can I do to be useful and helpful right now in the landscape that exists, and also just being very open to collaboration and hoping that other folks are willing to do the same because we need each other right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. What are you doing? Let's say food wise, like what are you trying to eat? Maybe a little bit better. Are you just eating the same things? Are you rationing? Or are you? How's that going for you?
I love food. I was actually just watching Restaurants on the Edge on Netflix. Great show if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, good show.
Good show. Yeah. So, Me personally, I've always been a, shop every day, every couple days kind of person.
Got it. Yeah.
I think I learned that, living in Berlin and London and New York, like that's just how people shop. They're not doing like, maybe you'll do a weekly shop, but, I typically enjoy getting lots of ingredients and making kind of elaborate meals and yada, yada. So at this point, just received a grocery delivery via Instacart yesterday from HEB, which was the highlight of my week.
What was the backup on that? Was it like a week or something?
8 days.
8 days.
Yeah,
wow.
8 days.
Wow.
8 days. So, but the great thing about Instacart was that as I went through the week, I could continue to add things to the order.
That is good. Right? Up until the last minute. That is good. So they don't lock in your order and like, oh, that's it. You can't. Okay, that is good. Important. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Update the quantities. Oh shit! I realized I'm out of X. I need to add it.
Sure.
And then the other key tidbit of info I would share is that when your order is being prepared, Instacart's great because it lets you know, but then you can also communicate in real time with the person, the lovely human who is out there doing the shopping for you. And so,
yes, props to those people right now. Props. I mean, if it was already hard enough to do Instacart and go through the grocery store and buy for other people, now, whew, yes,
limited quantities.
Yeah, right? Limited quantities for
putting
sure.
Themselves at risk, frankly, and look, make no mistake, it's a privilege. I'm so grateful for being able to even afford groceries right now, let alone pay someone else.
Same here.
To go out and do that for me. I can't tell you. But, the way that we are cooking at home right now is we're just being very conscious of what we've got and rationing a little bit, but also just trying to do smart cooking. So using the crock pot a lot.
Yeah. Good call.
I've been working your way through like the fresh ingredients to the dried ingredients to the frozen ingredients. And then the other thing I would say is like yesterday when I got all my produce, like I divided it in half. I took my mushrooms and sauteed some and froze them. I took, zucchini and bell peppers and onion, some of them, and I chopped them up and I froze those.
Good
and
call.
I also was very conscientious about washing the skins of all of my fruit and vegetables immediately when they got to the house.
Yes, that is key. Look, I'll give you a little insight that you may have never even heard of. And most people have never heard of this, but maybe you have. You have lived in Europe. This is actually a trick I learned living in Spain. But maybe their bleach is different, but they even on the bottles, it says to put a little bit of bleach diluted in water and clean your vegetables in that.
Really?
And that's just on a normal, like I used to do that every day. Like that was just part of my routine. No problem. Again, it'll even say it on the bottle that you can do that. But it's definitely in a time like now, be careful. Don't overdo it. It'll tell you you can Google search like what's the correct amount, per amount of water that you have. But it is a good way to completely, make sure your vegetables are good to go. And another thing I would say, don't wash them till you're ready to eat them.
Okay. That's good to know.
Or if you're going to freeze them or whatever, don't wash them till you're ready to prep them, basically, because the moment you wash them, they actually start losing their life. The best thing you can do with any fruits or vegetables is to leave them how you got them till you're ready to, use them. And honestly, people should Google search. This is a good time for anybody to set up their kitchen in a proper way to cook, because that's why most people don't cook at home, is because they got a spatula over here, a pan over here, or this over there. It takes them 45 minutes just to get all the tools together to make something. But if you set up your kitchen right, your mise en place, as we call it in the industry, which just means things in place. That's literally all it means. But you have everything in place, and this is the time now, guys, to set up the kitchen. Maybe learn some new recipes, new things you haven't cooked. I think your advice is great. Chop up some vegetables, get them frozen, prepare for the long haul. Anything fresh that maybe can't be frozen, yes, eat that right away and work your way to the stuff that's going to last longer. Absolutely. Pickle stuff. Pickling is a great way to make things last. That's a tried and true. They've been doing that for hundreds of years.
Hell yeah. I mean, I have wanted to get into canning vegetables and fruits and whatever for the longest time. My mom and I have done it a bit together. We made jams together.
Yeah.
this, what I know for sure, and I don't have the materials right now, nor do I have a garden, but I know for me, like coming out of this, I want to start doing that in the future. I want to have
That's
a
awesome.
nice stockpile, you know, of things for my own garden.
Sure.
I don't want to be dependent on grocery stores as much as I am right now, frankly.
Yeah, we all are. We all are.
HEB is literally the lifeblood of Texas right
I
now.
agree.
Like,
It's boy, you are 100% right on that. They are, and they're crushing it. They're doing everything so well. Not only are they open, but they're doing it beautifully. You know, I mean, just couldn't ask for a better. To me, it's the best grocery store I've ever shopped at in my whole life and anywhere in the world I've lived. It's my favorite place to have ever bought groceries. Well, you know, maybe not the freshest stuff all the time.
Sure.
You know, aside from, you know, there's just places that you can go and get unbelievable fresh meats but aside from that, just a chain grocery store, it is.
Agreed. They're great.
It is the best. Yeah, it is the best. And you're right. They're doing an amazing job. They hired a bunch of people too. You know, they're offering jobs in a time when people are losing them. That cannot go unnoticed.
They're giving elderly people access to the store early.
Yeah.
They're making sure that their teams are taken care of. They're doing, you know, screenings of their staff before they go to work to keep people safe. I mean, they're doing everything they possibly can be. And I think that's the other thing that we've all kind of learned right through this process. You know, there was a very long time there where my team, you know, was producing, like I said, a variety of different events. I had a tech event that was going to be a 5-day experience for folks in the, you know, VC and entrepreneurs. And then my other event was very much like a honky tonk rock and roll party that we were producing over at Schultz. And, you know, Schultz was holding out, man. They've been there 130 plus years. They've been through the freaking Spanish flu, the First World War, the Second World War, you know, like this ain't their first rodeo. And they were going to hold out. But, you know, at a certain point, it was just no longer safe for anyone. And you know, so I personally had a call via one of our sponsor partners brought this contact to the table, but Baylor, Scott, and White were willing to get on the phone and talk about things we could do precautionarily, things that they could do to help us, to have on-site sanitation stations and so on. I mean, I was just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I could to be as protective and preventative as possible. But I'm also not an expert, you know, none of us are. Well, thankfully some people are, but, you know, thank God. But, you know, it was just, you learn fire by, what's the phrase? Fire by,
trial by fire.
I'm bad at,
me too. Bad at sayings. Me too.
Colloquials.
I screw it up. I screw them up all the time. No, but you're right. That's absolutely correct. You know, look, nobody's been through. Even the experts have never even been through this, right? Like this is a unique situation. Completely, it's just a unique situation. Even when we think it's over, it's not going to be over. It's going to be a trickle effect. Same way it came to us, it will leave us. You know, it will, like you said, even when they open up everything, even when they say, okay, everyone can go back to living their normal lives. I mean, not everyone's just going to be rushing to be next to each other. You know, it's just going to happen slowly but surely. You know,
we will have PTSD.
Yes, a lot of people will. Yes. And understandably so. You know, depends how long this lasts. What if people are stuck home for months? I mean,
what if we start losing our loved ones and we can't go to their funerals? People are facing that issue right now, and they have been all over the world. It just hasn't quite hit us close to home yet. And so it's going to take, it's already taking a mental toll on all of us. And I'm glad that there are people out there that are focused on that are trying to be supportive. We can all, you know, do our bit by like reaching out to our friends and reaching out to family. And, you know, not everyone lives with a partner. Not everyone has a pet. A lot of people are truly at home by themselves.
Yeah,
and,
you're right.
You know, they need that interaction and that human engagement. You know, it's like I was saying to my fiance today, I was like, kind of like nudging him and poking his arm this morning. And I was like, isn't it weird? You're like the only human that I'm allowed to touch for the next, like, a couple of months.
That's true.
It's just so bizarre, right?
It is bizarre. You're right. I think what's even more apropos would be to be stuck with somebody you don't like for the longest time. Like, I prefer to be alone. I think the worst nightmare would be, oh my God, I got to be alone with you for X amount of time. You know,
oh shit.
those people have to be really passing it bad, even worse than being alone. I mean, it has to be. I mean, I just can't even imagine being
you know
quarantined.
What? You're so right. We've all played that game. Like, who would you bring with you to an island, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
An isolated island, but nobody ever played. Like, who would you never want to be with?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, and I'm sure that list is longer. To be honest with you, you know, because yeah, that's true. That's true. That's what I feel is happening. I feel bad for all the people that are, you know, women that are maybe going through domestic violence and kids that are child abuse and all this stuff, because people are stressed out. They're at home. They can't pay their bills. Maybe they're out of work. And what starts to happen now, and you're stuck in a small place with people. You can't leave. The world is literally, you know, shutting down, and everyone's just supposed to stay cool, calm, and collected. And some people are just not handling it well. And I just feel bad for those, you know, pets that are being abused, children, women, you know, just kills me. And, you know, hopefully, you know, mental health, you brought that up earlier. And I think that's such a critical thing to keep in mind at this point, because people could, that's the one thing that could tear us apart, is if people don't keep it together mentally through this, you know. I mean,
even, you know, when I was reading something yesterday, I forget where it was, but it was a quote about baseball, and it's like, you know, I played sports my whole life. I played softball. It was at least 80% of it was mental. You know, being able to keep your head in the game. I was a pitcher, you know, so you would hear the team, you would hear the fans, you would hear everyone. You had to focus on your catcher and the signals you were getting, and knowing who was on base and what was happening. You know, getting that perfect pitch in the glove. And it was completely, it was so much about your mental state. And, you know, if you let yourself get rocked by somebody, inevitably the game was going to go in the other direction, right?
Absolutely.
And so you're right. Like, being able to keep your mental state healthy during this time, not giving into fear, not, you know, waking up and going straight to the headlines and reading the body count and everything else. Like, it's so easy to get into that negative loop and negative cycle, because it is unknown and it is scary, and none of us have ever fucking been through it before. So,
exactly. We've never been through it. And anyone trying to tell you, you know, everything that's going to happen and this and that, and, you know, the Clintons made up the virus or whatever bullshit people are coming up with, you know, it's nobody knows, you know, keep it just, that's it. Just keep the mental game. And you're right. You know, in sports, that's exactly, you know, how it is. And that's life. You know, life is so much mental, of just keeping a positive attitude and moving forward. And that old saying of, you know, it's not how you fall, it's how you get up, or whatever that is. It's absolutely true. And that's the case right now. You know, gotta keep you know, I think that's a good point about not getting up and going right to the headlines. I think that's a great point to bring up. Like, take some time for yourself in the morning. The first thing you do when you wake up is take time for yourself. You know, I read a thing about, I don't know who it was from, but some sort of, you know, person that does inspirational speeches, or, you know, something like that. And some big business guy. And he said, you know, the first thing I do in the morning is take care of myself. That, like, up until like noon, I send out my own emails. I make my phone calls. I do things I need to do for me. I don't answer emails. I don't answer phone calls. I don't respond to messages. I don't do nothing that's required of me to fill their, you know, whatever they need.
Right.
I take care of me first. Then I get to that later in the day. And I think that's a perfect thing to do right now. Wake up, take care of yourself, you know, what you need to do, plan out your day, and then you can get to start looking, maybe catching up on some news. Because it is good to be informed, but it's not good to be, you know, panicking about everything.
Yeah, you can't stick your head in the sand right now. Definitely not. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, and I for one am guilty of having woke up and gone straight to headlines.
Me too.
I'm trying really hard not to do that.
Me too.
You know, get up, take your vitamins, keep your yourself filled up with water, because hydration is key.
I agree.
Wash them dirty hands.
That's right.
And you know, get a little meditation in there. I personally have been I'm usually very hard on myself, right? I'm like a driven person. I work a lot, and I have been learning to stop the negative inner conversations with myself, which I would previously kind of come down hard on myself. Like,
Sure.
Don't waste your time sitting here watching Netflix for an hour. Like, what are you doing? You should be doing X, Y, and Z, you lazy ass, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm giving myself a little bit of a break and letting myself have more time to just kind of zone out and read a book or watch, Joe Exotic on Netflix, because Tiger King is amazing.
Yes. I could spend a whole week talking about that guy and that whole thing. I agree. But you make a good point. You gotta look, if anything, again, moving forward, what are we going to take from this situation? And maybe that's what people should take is this is the perfect time to think about what your life is actually about. And what your life, what is it actually important in your life? And what do you take for granted? And what are you grateful for? These are the times, and to put your life in perspective, we may be going through things, you and I, but there are people going through way worse, right? And we know that, right? We know where we are on the ladder. It doesn't take anything away from what you're going through, but it definitely puts it in perspective, those sorts of things. Like you said, you feel grateful that you can even get delivery of groceries and even have the groceries, right? Like, so you're aware of these things. And these are just things that I hope people carry over, that they just carry over from this and don't forget about, these sorts of things when life gets back to normal, because this could happen again. And this could happen, maybe another way or whatever, or something else that brings the world together, in a way. Yeah. So yes. I'm just hopeful that's the case, that we stick with this, and people are still cool. That's what I worry. No rioting yet, right? I haven't heard about anything like that, or anything.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, people need clear information. It's when the messages get mixed. It's when people are confused and afraid that those types of behaviors we've seen in the past, right? So we are reliant on our information systems and our federal government and our local government to get their shit in sync and provide us with, information that is relevant, timely, and ideally, supporting our health and wellness and getting us through this crisis. I think we could talk all day about where there's been disconnect, right? But I at least feel that in this community, in this city, our governor, our mayor have done a pretty phenomenal job with giving us up-to-date information, with making choices that were the right choices at the time with the information that they had. I was looking at the New York Times article today with the breakdown of the numbers of cases across the country that we know about, and breaking down where the cases have been traced to. And one of the sort of top 5 or 6, I believe it was, areas in which they have been able to identify a high number of cases was that conference that happened in Boston right before South by Southwest. And I looked at that today and I thought, wow, I'm so glad to not see South by Southwest listed here as a experience conference that had also impacted the illness in a negative way. So,
in a weird way, it's good that South by didn't happen. I hate to say that, because a lot of people lost a lot of things, but money we can get back. The economy can recover, but we can't get people's lives back,
Right.
And it's a tough pill to swallow. It really is. It's a really tough pill to swallow. But yeah, you're right. Austin would be an epicenter if we'd have had South by.
Absolutely.
It would have blown up.
Look at what's happening in New Orleans because of Mardi Gras.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and they stopped Mardi Gras for the most part, a lot of different things, but the city kept going, right? People just kept partying and just didn't care. And look what's happening. Just like you said, it's the same thing.
Yep.
The people that are partying on the beaches in Florida still, now those people are getting tested and they have the virus.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like some of these people, it's like karma. This one guy I saw, I don't even know what I was just reading through the news, and it was some, Instagram guy, influencer, one of these dudes, and he went and started licking toilet paper and toilet seats and weird shit, just weird. And sure enough, he got the virus. It's like, what's wrong with you, dude? I mean, he was like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to get the virus. And then sure enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then there's a woman in Pennsylvania that they arrested. I don't know if you saw this. She was on the news today. My home state. She went into a grocery store somewhere in Pennsylvania and was screaming, I've got the virus and now you're going to get it too, and was licking items in the grocery store and spitting on things. And she got arrested, and she's facing up to 20 years in jail. Now, I'm sure she'll probably just do some probation, but
holy shit.
What's wrong with people?
What is wrong with people? Yes, that is crazy. Is that the same woman that coughed on the food and they had to throw away like $35,000? Is that the same woman?
I don't know if that's the same person, but wow.
Yeah, that's the story I heard, that someone, this grocery store had to throw away $35,000 worth of food because this woman came in and coughed on the food.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable. It's those kind of. Now, I think that's not the norm. I just think there's, no matter what, it just goes to show, no matter what's happening in this world, the world could be ending and people are still doing stupid shit.
America, what can you say? We're
Leave it to
always
us.
Going to have some stupid shit. And I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it 9 times out of 10.
They're from Florida?
Probably in Florida.
I said it too. You knew it. I knew it. Yes, because we know as Americans that that's the craziness. And I love Florida. My grandparents lived there for a long time. I got cousins there. But they know it. Yeah. They know that this state is crazy. It's like Texas, but not cool. There's no coolness. It's like it's the beaches. If Florida didn't have beaches, nobody would go there.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. I mean, it had its heyday in the 30s and 40s when the Brat Pack and stuff were going down there and beaching and having hanging out in their little cabanas and shit. And, men wore slacks with zippers up to their necks and stuff. I mean, it was just a different time.
Yeah, different time.
Now it's just a bunch of New Jersey meatheads. And anyway, don't quote me on that. Now I'm getting nasty. But it's a special place.
It's a special place. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a special place. Well, you're right. And what's crazy is they're not even the number one place for the spread, right? It's New York. So Texas is doing okay, to be honest with you. I think we're at 2,000 cases or so, maybe a little under that as of now. I guess we'll just go with it and see how things go with this. What are your plans? Let's say, well, let me ask you this. What do you, and I know it's hard to judge this or to even guess this, but when do you think maybe things might get back to normal or sort of normal, right? Do you think middle of April, May? Are you thinking June? What are you?
I honestly, I haven't thought about what normal life goes back to specifically. I've been working from home for 8 months anyway, so I'm kind of already in a place where this is normal for me to be at home. But from a entertainment perspective, I've been having conversations with venue owners in the city and musicians and other creatives about when we think things will get back to normal. And specifically, the date that's being thrown around is kind of around July. It sounds like a lot of entertainment, big entertainment groups, as well as a lot of venue owners are sort of looking at July as a potential date, a time in which venues could be back open, where artists might be going back on tour, those types of things. But it's all arbitrary right now, which makes it incredibly difficult to make any kind of plans, projections, bookings, etc. from a music and entertainment perspective. But you don't want to plan too close or set something up and then it gets canceled, right? Then you've done all that work for nothing. exactly. And everyone's kind of already been through that, right? With whatever tours they had booked and anything else. So, but I personally, I don't think our federal government is going to do a great job at kind of dictating when people should be out in public. I'm afraid that they may tell us too soon and that they'll be making a giant mistake. And so I hope that the local governments, like I mentioned, will continue to do a good job at dictating to the people within our own communities when we should be going back out into public. Now, that doesn't say that they're going to put like a moat around the state of Texas if suddenly like Louisiana and Oklahoma are like, hey, all bets are off. Let's go celebrate Easter and look for eggs, kids. Doesn't mean that like we're going to be protected here in Texas necessarily, because I would imagine people can still come in and out. They've only been putting people in isolation if they're coming from kind of New York, I believe, and some other places.
Yeah.
So, but I guess, we'll just have to see. We've got to flatten the curve, right? That's the whole deal. So
that's the deal. Flatten the curve. Yeah, it is tough to, it would definitely make things a lot easier if we just had like a set date that we knew this would all be over. And from that point forward, you could plan and do this and do that. I mean, that would, it's the unpredictability. Like you said, it's so arbitrary to even think about it right now, because I mean, in my mind, it's definitely not going to happen in the next couple weeks, like some people are thinking. By Easter we'll be out, running around. I mean, that's just crazy to me. How could it just? Again,
I think we're going to see the numbers continue to explode, unfortunately, and we're going to see our hospitals and our healthcare workers at the brink of breaking point, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, unfortunately. I mean, of course, I don't hope for any of this, but
but we got to be real, right? You just have to be real with what's happening so you can prepare. That's all it is.
That's it. Yeah.
That's all it is.
So I'm with you. So what are your plans with this content that you're gathering? Are you planning to use this for your podcast?
This is all for the podcast. Exactly. We're just basically pivoting at this point, just because our studio's closed. Obviously no in-person interviews like I was doing before, because our podcast before was I would sit with somebody in person, we'd order food, we'd eat it, share food, talk. That was the podcast. Obviously that cannot happen anymore. So we're just pivoting to how the virus is affecting anybody, to be honest with you, but a Texas connection, because the podcast is all about Texas. But obviously I talked to some guy who just moved from Texas to New York, so he gave me sort of the breakdown of what's happening there in New York City. People that are displaced. Someone I spoke to earlier today is from Germany and got stuck here coming for South by, and now cannot get back to Europe with his family. So it's just a little bit of everything, but basically that's it. Anything that has to do with the virus. And normally we only released one episode a week, so now we're going to be doing 3 or 4, and just keeping it up to date. This will go out early this next week, and it'll be a part of a single episode that'll have a few, probably 2 to 3 interviews, and yours will be one of them. I'll take snippets from what we just talked about, all the good stuff, and put it in there.
Yeah, only the good stuff.
All the good stuff, which is a lot, to be honest with you. This is the best conversation I've had so far, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's great to hear. Good.
Yeah,
sometimes
really
I say nice things and they come out of my mouth.
That's what I got hired for. I just open it up and I don't even control it anymore. It just whatever comes out. Keep it easy. I just let other people talk. That's the best way to do it. Let other people say the cool shit. But it was great. I really enjoyed talking to you. Really enjoyed your insight. Really enjoyed just you being honest and open and, being vulnerable to our audience here so they can see what you're struggling with and what you're going through, and that you see the positive side. Even someone as yourself having your business gutted like that, you still have such a positive outlook, and you're looking to adapt and looking to, you're not just laying down and giving up. Right. You're sticking up for yourself and what you got to do, and you're pivoting, you're adapting, you're doing what you got to do. So I think that's uplifting and motivating. And I didn't want all these podcasts to be doom and gloom. I didn't want to just come on and talk about the virus and how we're all fucked and screwed, and
Right.
that's it, the end of the world. I wanted to come on and talk about people's hardships, but also what can we do to, make it better, and what can we do to just help each other out, So that's what I'm getting from everybody, and I really, really enjoy that. And again, I just really appreciate you being so open and honest and vulnerable about everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you opening up and asking people to participate. And I'm glad that we found each other in the Austin Entrepreneurs. I don't even remember, where was it? The
Startups, Austin Startups. Yeah. I lose track of the groups. Yeah. Right.
So many groups.
So many groups. Yes, so many groups. Yeah, absolutely. And again, look, if there's anything you feel that I might be a resource for you or could help you with something, feel free to reach out. You have my number now, and you know how to get a hold of me on Facebook too. So if there's ever anything you need or anything I can help with, please feel free to reach out.
Same goes for me. I'm here if you ever need anything. You can learn more about my weirdo background on LinkedIn if you like, but I can tell you, I've dabbled in creative strategy my entire career, worked in music and entertainment with startups, done a shit ton of copywriting, and I'm kind of a MacGyver.
I like
for
that.
Business.
I like that. Where can people? Yeah, I like that. Where can people, is there a particular website that people can go to, or just find you on LinkedIn, or what would be a way for people to maybe connect with you or your business?
Sure. That would be great. It's Aces High Creative, one word, all one word.com.
Got it. Aces High Creative. Cool. Perfect. Yep. That's awesome. Okay. Well, great. Look, I hope you get to enjoy, the rest of the weekend, and I don't think too much new news will be coming out the rest of today and tomorrow. So I would say just do something fun, do something with your fiance, puzzle, more Tiger King, We
literally got Yahtzee and Monopoly delivered yesterday. So
that's what I did. Me too. My roommate and I got Monopoly. All they had was frozen Monopoly. So I have this frozen version of Monopoly, which is horrendous.
That is so funny. I saw the same thing on Amazon. It was like only themed Monopoly versions were available. So yeah, well done, Frozen.
Yeah, it's great. It's hilarious. So, but yeah, I'm with you. Some games. Do something fun. You got all next week to be worried and get all that information. True. So.
That is true.
That's my advice.
Right on. Well, so good to connect with you. Really enjoyed our conversation. Have a lovely weekend, and excited to see what you do with all this juicy content.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And absolutely. Have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll talk soon again. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.